Zion, Zion Het.
Yep.
If bodily defects were upon her while she was still in her father's house, the father must bring proof that these defects came after she was betrothed, and that his misfortune had caused it. If she entered the husband's authority, the husband must bring proof that she had these defects before she was betrothed, and that his deposition was made in error. These are the words of Ramea. The comment, however, say that when does this apply? In the case of hidden defects, but in the case of exposed defects, he cannot make a claim. If there is a bathhouse in the city, even in the case of the hidden defects, he cannot make a claim because he examines her through his female relatives. As for a man upon whom bodily the defects excuse me, came about, he is not coerced to divorce his wife. Reb Shimon says, Ben Gamil says, when does this apply in the case of minor defects? But in the case of major defects, he is considered coerced to divorce her. And these are the ones who are coerced to divorce: a leper, or one afflicted with an offensive nasal smell, one who gathers, one who mines copper, and a tanner, whether they have believed whether they were had them before they were married, or they came about after they were married. Concerning all of them, McMahon said, even if he had stipulated with her, she can say, I thought I would be able to endure it, but now I cannot endure it. The sages, however, say that she must endure it against her will, except the leper, because he cannot, his flesh, she causes his flesh to decay. It once happened in Sidon that a man, Tanner, died, and he had a brother who was a Tanner. The sages said, she said, can say, your brother I could endure, but you I cannot endure. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, um, again, going into monetary laws over here of what a husband owns of his wife's property. So the typical case is if a woman comes into a marriage with property, then the husband has the right of its usage, and anything that's produced by the land is his. Okay. Now, the question that we're talking about is an edge case over here. If the woman comes into ownership of property, for example, she inherited it. She doesn't have any brothers, and she inherited property from her father. Okay. So ha'isha shenaflu la nechasim. If she owned it, obviously before she got married, she can do whatever she wants with it. So the question is
Mhm.
now, if she gets married somewhere along the line, and remember the two stages of marriage, there's erusin and there's nisuin. Okay. Ever since she's still not living with her husband and he has less of a claim to her property. So we'll see. Ha'isha shenaflu la nechasim ad shelo tis'ares. So she inherited the property before she even accepted the ring. Okay. Modim beis Shammai beis Hillel shemocheres v'nosenes v'kayam. Right. So she can sell this property even after she has gotten married in Arison, that is. So she had the property before she accepted the ring, and she's still living in her parents' house until she moves in. But she can do whatever she wants with that property. Okay. Naflula Misha Nisarsa. However, what happens if she received the inheritance after she got married? Right, after she got engaged, we'll call it. Even though it's not engaged in the terms of today because she's legally married, but she's just not living with her husband. But we'll call it engaged. Um, Beis Shammai Omrim Timkor. They say no change in her status. Or Beis Hillel Omrim Lo Timkor. No, she's not allowed to sell. Well, now that since it fell into her property when she was already married, now her husband has got more of a claim on it. So therefore, she should not sell it without his permission. Eilu ve'eilu modim she'im machra v'nasna kayam. However, both Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai agree that if she went ahead and sold without permission, according in the case of Beis Hillel, nonetheless the sale is valid, and the husband has no way to gazump the sale. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amr lifnei Rabban Gamliel. So Rabbi Yehuda says no. They had this discussion in front of Rabban Gamliel. Hoil, and they asked him. Hoil v'zacha be'isha, since he already has rights over the woman, lo yizke b'nechasim, so does he not have rights over the nechasim? In other words, they're saying, shouldn't he be able to revoke the sale? Say, this was sold without my permission, I'm taking it back. Amar lehen, so Rabban Gamliel says, ala chadashim anu boshin. We're embarrassed about the fact that you want to that you want to make him that you want to give him the right to gazump a sale that happened after Nisuin. Ela she'atem megalgelin aleinu es hayishanim. Now you're going to say that he's got the right to gazump even the old ones, the ones that fell during Erisin. So in other words, Rabban Gamliel is not happy with that with that suggestion. He rejects the position that you might be able to gazump the sale. Okay. Naflula mishenises. Now what happens if the inheritance falls to her once she's already living with her husband? Elu ve'elu modim she'im machra v'nasna she'abal motzi miyad halakochos. That if she went ahead and sold the property, then the husband is able to gazump the sale. He can say, "I did not give permission. This fell to my wife while she was already living with me, which means that I've automatically got the rights over it. And if she sold it, it's not valid." So he can claw it back from the buyers. Achiloni says, what happens if she got the property by inheritance during Erisin and now she wants to sell it after she has already been married? Rabban Gamliel Omer, im machar v'nasna kayam. If she went ahead and sold it, it is nonetheless valid. Amar Rabbi Chanina ben Akavia, Amru lifnei Rabban Gamliel. The Chachamim protested Rabban Gamliel and says, Hoil v'zacha b'isha. Since he's already living with the woman, lo yizkeh v'nachasim. Why he's got the full rights over the property? Why shouldn't he be able to gazump it? Amar lehem ala chadashim anu boshin ela sha'atem megalgilan aleinu es hayeshanim. So he says the same thing as he said earlier in the Mishnah. We're already embarrassed about the fact that that that's the new property. In other words, the property that fell to her by inheritance when she was
Mhm.
already married, and the fact that he can gazump that sale. That he could and that was bad enough. Now you want to say that he can gazump the sale of things that fell to her while she was in Erisin. Um, so he so he doesn't hold like that. But apparently the Chachamim disagree with him. Now there was a nice little table that explained it in the art scroll. I think you probably got it over there. That shows
No,
the.
I don't
Huh?
have anything.
Have you got this? Have you got the table?
I know there's nothing here.
Okay, so I will. I'm just opening up the art scroll now, and I'll share it with you. Um, Ches Aleph TLC, Ches Aleph. Okay, I'm just opening it up on my computer, and I'll share it in a second. That. Okay, here we go. Busy loading. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, this is taking a very long time. So let's just move on to the next mission, and we'll come back to the halacha once it's loaded.
Okay.
Okay, it might just need to be. Oh, there we go. Here it is. Here's the little table. So basically, um, we've got everyone agrees about before Erisin that the sale stands. If it was received during Erisin and sold during Erisin, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai have a machlokes, but the sale nonetheless stands. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Chachamim disagree. If he if she received it during Erisin or earlier and tried to sell it after Nisuin, it's not allowed, but the sale nonetheless stands. But according to Rabbi Chanina, this is challenged by Chachamim. If it was after Nisuin, everyone agrees that it is not permitted, but it's questioned by Rabban Gamliel because it says he's embarrassed about the fact that we can do the gazumping. Okay, that's basically your summary of the positions in Mishnah Aleph.
That's a good chart.
Okay. All right. Next Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Cholek. Bein Nechasim leNechasim. He says there's a difference, says Rabbi Shimon, between the different properties. Nechasim hayeduim lebal. If the husband knows about the property, then lo timkor. Then she's not allowed to sell. B'macha v'nasna batel. And if she went ahead and sold, then the deal is batel. She'eni doing leval, but if the husband never knew about these properties and she never told him and they fell to her in inheritance, Lo Timkor, she is not allowed to sell because she's supposed to disclose it to her husband. Ve'im machar v'nasna kayam, but if she she did go ahead and sell them, then and the husband discovers about this later, then then he's got no legal recourse to reverse the sale. Interesting. I wonder if this ties in with Rabbi Shimon's general shita that he always goes after kavana. If the Baal doesn't
Uh,
have kavana, then he doesn't own it yet. Perhaps there's something to be said about that. He's always the guy who says like malacha shalom is kavin. Then he's mutar. As malacha, if he had no intention, then the malacha is mutar. Okay. Gimel. Naflu la kasafim. So what happens if cash if she got a cash inheritance or any metaltalin basically? Yilakach behin karka. So the husband can say, okay, take this money and buy some property for yourself. And now he can benefit from the peiros of that field. Peiros solution. By the way, in modern parlance, we would possibly say that she can buy if she's got enough money to buy an apartment, then he would get the rental because that's also considered peiros. Okay. Peiros hatzelushin min hakarka. What happens if she inherits property and there's already produce that's been harvested? Okay, so the produce that's been harvested is basically metaltalin. Okay, so it's basically cash. Yilakach behin karka. So then she must sell them and use the money to buy karka. V'hu ochel peiros, and now he can enjoy the peiros of that land going forward. Mechuberin karka. What happens if the peiros are still attached to the tree? Amar Rabbi Meir, Shamin osan kama hein yafin peiros v'kama hein yafin lo peiros. Look at the difference between how much they're worth with the peiros and how much they're worth without the peiros. And now and you're saying that there's a difference between the two. Um, so what do you have to do? So this is a bit of a little complicated thing. So how much is the land worth with the fruit, and how much is it worth without the fruit, and with the value of the difference? More land is brought and given to her, and now he can eat the produce from that land. So I mean, how do you translate that into a cash value? In other words, what he's saying is that the parrots actually do belong to the woman because they developed on the tree before she got married, or before it fell to her in an inheritance, and therefore, since she still has a share in them, then the value still gets translated into land for her. However, uh, Chachamim omrim hamechuberim lekarka shelo. If it's still attached to the ground, then basically it's his to enjoy his Paris completely. Forget about they've got to buy land which will benefit the woman as well. It's now basically the husband's property. Hatzlushin min hakarka, whatever has already been separated from the ground, those are hers. Shelah v'ilakach behen karka v'hu okel Paris, and then you use that monetary value to buy more land, and he can enjoy the Paris. Okay.
okay. See, we are in Hey Gimel. A Yavam does not confer upon his sister-in-law the right to eat of Truma if she has spent 6 months before her husband and 6 months before the Yavam, and even all of them before her husband, less one day that she spent before the Yavam, or all of them before the Yavam, less one day that she spent before her husband, she may not eat of Truma. This is the original ruling. The court that came after them said a woman might eat of Truma until she enters the chuppah. If one consecrated his wife's handiwork, she may nevertheless work and eat. If he consecrated the surplus, Reb Meir says it is consecrated. Reb Yochanan Hasanla says it is not consecrated. These are the kinds of work that a woman must do for her husband. She must grind, bake, and wash, cook, and nurse her child, make his bed, and work with wool. If she brought him one maidservant, she need neither grind, bake, or wash. If she brought two, she need neither cook nor nurse a child. Three, she need neither make his bed nor work with wool. Four, she may sit in an easy chair. If Eliezer says, even if she brought him 100 maidservants, she should compel her to work with wood. For idleness brings to unchastity. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says even if one pronounces a vow about his wife not to do any work, he must divorce her and give her a ketubah. Idleness brings to insanity. Okay.
Okay.
Now we have vamos.
Mhm.
Okay, Yud Aleph Vav. If a woman did not wait 3 months after her divorce or widowhood from her husband, but remarried and gave birth, and it is not known whether it was a 9-month child or a former husband or a 7-month child by the latter, if she also had another son from the first and second husbands, these sons perform kalitza but not yibum. Similarly, he performs kalitza for them but not yibum. If he had brothers by the first and second husbands, not through his mother, he may perform either kalitza or yibum, whereas one must perform kalitza, after which the other one may perform yibum. If one husband was a Yisrael and one husband was a Kohen, the child must marry a woman fit to marry a Kohen, but he may not contaminate with the dead, for if he contaminated himself, he does not incur 40 lashes. He may not eat truma, but before he ate, he is not required to pay the principal and the additional fifth. He does not receive a portion of the threshing floor, but he may sell truma and keep the proceeds. He does not receive a portion of the sacred temple objects, and we do not give him sacred objects, but what is his is not taken from him. He is exempt from giving the upper foreleg, the jaws, and the stomach. His firstborn animal must be left to pasture until it becomes blemished, and both the stringencies which apply to Kohanim and those which apply to Yisraelim are imposed upon him. If both husbands were Kohanim, he must observe the flock, those of Onem for them, and for him, but he may not contaminate himself with them, nor they with him. He does not inherit from them, but they inherit from him. If he is not liable for striking or cursing either of them, he must go up with the watch of each, but does not receive a portion. However, if both belong to the same watch, he receives one portion. Okay. If the commandment of Kalitza is performed before 3 judges, even if all 3 are laymen, if she performed Kalitza with a leather shoe, her Kalitza is valid. With a cloth shoe, it is not valid. With a heeled sandal, it is valid. With an unheeled sandal, it is not valid. Below the knee. Her Kalitza is valid. Above the knee, her Kalitza is not valid. And we are on to Beitzah. Beitzah Aleph Gimel. Beis Shammai says we may not move the ladder from one dovecote to another, but may lean it on one window to another, and Beis Hillel permits it. Beis Shammai says one should not take the doves out of the dovecote on Yom Tov unless one held them before Yom Tov. The Beis Hillel says one may stand and say, this one and that one will I take. If one had designated before Yom Tov black doves, but on Yom Tov found white doves, or he had designated white doves and found black doves, or if he had designated 2 and found 3, they're prohibited. If he designated 3 but found only 2, they're permissible. If the designated doves have been in the nest but found doves in front of the nest, they are prohibited. But if there were none there except these, they are permitted to be slaughtered. Beis Shammai says we may not remove the shutters on Yom Tov, but Beis Hillel permits even their replacement. Beis Shammai says we may not take the pestle to chop meat upon it, but Beis Hillel permits it. Beis Shammai says we may not put the hide of a freshly slaughtered animal where it will be trampled, nor may we pick it up unless meat, the volume of an olive, is on it. Beis Hillel permits it. Beis Shammai says we may not carry out neither a small child nor a lulav, nor a Torah scrolls of the public domain, but Beis Hillel permits it. Okay.
Trumos.
Okay, Kesubos. Yud Aleph. One may not put fig cake or dried figs into fish brine because he spoils them. But one may put wine into brine. One may not perform oil. One may perfume oil, but one may make wine into honey wine. One may not boil truma because wine because it diminishes it. Rabbi Yehuda permits because he improves it. Date, honey, apple wine, and winter grape vinegar, and all other fruit juices of truma. Eliezer declares them liable to the value, and they added fifth. Rabbi Yeshua exempts. Rabbi Eliezer declares them unclean as liquids. Rabbi Yeshua says the sages not count the 7 liquids of those as those who count spices, but the 7 kinds of liquids are unclean, and all the other liquids are clean. Okay. One may not turn dates into honey or apples into wine or winter grapes into vinegar, and no other fruit of Shuma or Ma'aser Sheni must be changed from its natural state, excepting those of olives and grapes. One does not receive 40 glasses on account of oil except for what issues from olives and grapes, and no liquid is brought for a Bikurim except that what issues from olives and grapes. And nothing is rendered unclean as a liquid except that what issues from olives and grapes, and one does not offer up on the altar except what issues from olives and grapes.
Okay. Ojalos.
Okay, Yud Beis Chet. If an outside piece of course adheres to the threshold, Reb Eliezer considers the house tamei, whereas Reb Shua declares it tahor. If the piece of course is located below the threshold, it is ruled half and half. If it adheres to the lintel, the house becomes tamei. Reb Yossi declares it tahor. If the piece of course located is inside the house, someone who touches the lintel becomes tamei. If someone touches the threshold, Reb Eliezer considers him tamei, and Reb Shua says, from a handbreadth and below, he remains tahor. From a handbreadth and above, he remains tamei. If a new window is made for light, its size to spread a tuma is the large gimlet of the temple chamber. If some of the window is left the size of the height of 2 finger breadths, the width of by the width of a thumb. In what case? What are cases in which some of the window is left? A window, however, that was being boarded up, but the job is not completed. The minimum size for a hole created by erosion through water, small animals, or salt is the size of a fist. If someone died that uses hole for general uses, the size is a square handbreadth. If for light, the size of a gimlet. Lattices and screens combine to equal the size of a gimlet, according to Reb Shammai, and Beis Hillel says only when the size of a gimlet is in one place. The above list of statutes are clear to allow tumor to enter and to allow tumor to exit. Reb Shimon says these are the minimum dimensions to allow tumor to enter, but not to allow tumor to exit. The minimum amount is a square handbreadth. The minimum size of an exterior window is the size of a gimlet. If a house was built outside it, the size of the window is a square handbreadth. And if the window ceiling was placed in the middle of the window, the sides of the lower part is a square handbreadth and the upper part a gimlet. And we have Avodah Zarah. No, gimel base. If one finds fragments of images, they are permitted. If he found the figure of a hand or the figure of a foot, they are prohibited because such objects are worshipped. If one finds utensils upon which there is a figure of the sun or a figure of the moon or a figure of a dragon, he should cast them into the Dead Sea. Reb Shimon Gamliel says those which are prominent utensils are prohibited. Those of which are common utensils are permitted. Reb Yossi says he may grind it and scatter it to the wind or cast it into the sea. As they said to him, even if so, it becomes fertilizer, which is prohibited, as it said, nothing of that which is man shall cleave to your hand. He said to him, I did not come into her domain. She came into my domain. We did not say the bathhouse is made an adornment for an Aphrodite, but we said
Yeah, can you
Aphrodite is
skip
made.
the page?
Skip the page. I knew
Yeah.
that. Proculus, the son of Philophus, asked Rabbi Gamliel and Akko, well, he who was bathing in the bathhouse of Aphrodite, he said to him, it is written in the Torah, nothing of that which is man shall cleave to your hand. Why then do you bathe in the house of Aphrodite? He replied, one may not answer in the bathhouse. And when he went out, he said to him, I did not come into her domain, she came into my domain. We do not pay the bathhouse is made of, we do not say that the bathhouse is made of an adornment to Aphrodite, but Aphrodite is made up of an adornment to the bathhouse. Another reason, if they would pay you a large sum of money, would you still not enter before your idol naked, or the seminal emission, or urinate before it? And this one stands by the opening of the sewer pipe, and all the people urinate in front of her. It is stated only the gods, which is treated as a god, is prohibited, but that which is not treated as God is permitted.
Okay, that's it.
Okay,
All
good.
right.
Okay.
Have a wonderful
Have a
day.
great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Thank you. Thank you.